In October 2023, I started my own sync licensing company called Super Selective. And the reason why I started it is because I started in the sync licensing space in 2014, working for a major music library, doing all their admin work and also composing for them until ultimately leaving that company and being full-time off music in 2020. From there, I started teaching people what I learned from this space. I started giving all the insight that I've learned from those last 6 years with working with that company and started building a community naturally. So that's why I started Super Selective. And let me tell you, it is by far one of the hardest things I've ever done. There's been times I wanted to quit. There's been times where I really just wanted to go back and just straight composing and not really focusing on anything else but creating music and sitting and pitching out for myself. But I am really stubborn. I'm stubborn and I really believe in my vision. And my vision is to help pitch people's music. I have a really entrepreneurial spirit. Obviously, I make music. And one of the hardest things for myself was giving up a lot of that music time to focus on building out this catalog and building out this business. But I'm stubborn and I know for a fact that this is going to work out. So I want to share some of the things that I've learned so far within this last year and some change building out this music catalog. First up is exposing my weaknesses, which I love to talk about. I am a homebody naturally. I don't like to go out much, but building this business is way different than just sitting at home and composing every day and just submitting music for TV shows and film. I have to go out there and build relationships, go to networking events, go to award shows, go to panels, and really put my face out there to introduce myself. And I feel like even though I'm in year 10 of my sync licensing journey, this is really year 1. There's a quote that my old boss used to say. I was mentored by some of the greatest. They're millionaires. They're really ahead in this space and they're doing great. And he used to always say this quote that he said was from Tony Robbins, but it's originally from Bill Gates. And he says, people underestimate what they can do in a year and overestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I think about that in the lifespan of what I'm building right now. I'm in year 1 of building out this music catalog. And I see this in the next 10 years being successful. And if I look back at year 1 of my sync licensing journey, I hadn't had my first placement yet. I hadn't had my first royalty check yet. And I had no idea what this was going to lead me to. I had no idea that this would bring me to this point right now. So I know that even though I have these weaknesses, I have these areas that I need to focus on, it's a challenge and a challenge accepted. I very much so like facing challenges. So some of those weaknesses was being a homebody, going out and networking, picking up the phone, cold calling, being on more Zoom calls, being on more cold email pitches. I used to feel like, oh, I don't want to bother this person. I don't want to come off seeming like I'm just trying to gain something from them. All these things are holding me back. And honestly, those have all been hurdles that I've learned from this moment. There's also been areas in this game where I've taken L's. Like last year, at the end of the last year, I was in a really rough spot. And it forced me to really look within myself and really grow. And I've noticed there's different things in my life that I have to take control of. A lot of the times we're scrolling, we're going through social media, we're getting fed these advertisements and they're really telling you what to do. They're telling you where to eat. They're telling you what to buy. And I really felt like I needed to gain back some of that control. I want to take better care of myself. I want to eat healthier. I want to really format my day and focus on areas where I was slipping in and really grow as a human being. And I think that building this business has really amplified those weak spots that I've had and forced myself to evolve as a person, which I love. I love that part of the journey. I love being able to wake up every day and challenging myself to grow as a person. Another thing that I've learned about building this catalog is how to properly build systems. So for within Super Selective, there's different areas I need to focus on. I have to accept new submissions from our composers. I have to accept new composers that submit to our catalog. I have to enter in metadata. I have to organize the music. I have to pitch the music. I have to send out emails. And I'm very aware that when you build a business, you want to build a business and work on the business and not in the business. And there's a goal for mine for 2025 is to hire my first employee. I know I need to have people who help me do the different areas that I'm focusing on right now. But since there's so many different areas and I don't have the budget to hire someone yet, I would let different things slip. So for 1 month, I may focus primarily on metadata, but then I would have like track registration fall behind. I would have accepting new submissions fall behind. And then another month I would focus on track registration. Everything else would fall behind. But I had to take a step back and realize, okay, these things are slipping through the cracks. How can I properly make sure that I bring some type of forward movement each week to these different tasks that I have to do? And that really forced me to build systems. So what I do now is I take an hour out of my day and I break everything down into small pieces. And I learned this from the book Atomic Habits. One of my favorite books by James Clear is taking different habits that you want to build and breaking them down very small. That's how you become consistent. It's about showing up in those areas in very small pieces. So I take 5 tracks that I register each day, and then I accept 3 new submissions, and then I put 2 to 5 tracks of metadata in each day, and I focus on that each day as a non-negotiable to make sure I'm consistent in that area. And I also make sure that I have time to pitch and focus on the things that build the company to actually gain money. Because at the end of the day, we can't have a company and run a company without making money. And my job is to pitch our musicians music and making sure that we provide value for them and provide value for ourselves. That's another thing that I really had to focus on, which is building out these systems to make sure that I have progress in areas that I want to grow from. So breaking down your goals into small actionable steps is one of the easiest ways to make sure that you have forward progress into reaching what you're trying to accomplish. Another thing that I learned how to do is build genuine relationships. If you really want to expand your network and grow as a musician, one of the most important things that I can give as a tip is expanding your network, making sure everybody knows who you are. And how you really do that is provide value. So I'm very, very obsessive about doing research. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of articles. I do a lot of research. If there's a music supervisor that I want to cold outreach, I will make sure I watch a podcast about them, find articles about them, look at their LinkedIn posts, look at any Instagram posts they may have, and learn about them. It's one of the ways that really helped me do more cold outreach and approach people at live events and panels. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a homebody, so going out and saying, hey, I'm this person is not natural to me. When I went to my first GMS Awards, it's a Guild of Music Supervisors Awards, pretty much a big networking event with all different music supervisors and sync agencies in the sync licensing space. When I went there, I went alone. I didn't know anybody, but I noticed that I recognized a lot of people based off articles or podcasts that I read about them. It was so easy for me to approach them because I was able to reference those podcasts and articles. So I would shake their hand and say, hey, I'm Nathan. I'm a big fan of this podcast you did with Mubu TV, where you talked about having vinyl players on each floor, and that you also like to go people watch, and you also like to go imagine what type of music that person may be listening to when you people watch them. And that's really stuck out to me. Introducing myself, shaking their hand, and referencing one of those points is one of the easiest ways to build relationships. Now, if you're not a person who's in America, or if there's not a lot of networking events, you live in a small secluded town, using online presence is really helpful. LinkedIn is one of the best ways you can do it, and being genuine is definitely the best way. There's definitely a format on LinkedIn right now that's very corporate, and I sometimes find myself succumbing to that corporate type of talk, but the more genuine, the more personable I am, the easier it is for me to expand my network and meet more people even through LinkedIn. So don't use the I'm in a small town as an excuse. I feel like it's definitely accessible in any area. If you really want to expand your network, build those relationships. Last thing I want to go over that I learned, if I wanted to start a music catalog right now, knowing what I know from the last year and a half from what I've built, is I would 100% specialize in one specific area. When I introduce myself now in a cold email, I like to say what we specialize in. And that ranges from a lot of different things. Contemporary pop, we have great dark pop, we have great Latin music, we have great Afro beats, we have great R&B, and depending on the project I'm pitching for, they're not gonna need all those different genres. So it's easier for me to specify one genre that I focus on. So if I was building a catalog now, I would be a specialty in a genre or an era being like 1950s, 60s, a time era. So if I wanted to build a catalog, I would introduce myself saying, hey, I'm X, Y, and Z. I specialize in Latin music from the 1940 eras to modern Latin pop. You can do this in any style, or you can do this in any genre of music. So if you're outside of the US, if there's a traditional style of music that's hosted in your country and you can make that style, pitching yourself even to a music library or sync agency and saying that you specialize in that style is gonna give you way more opportunities than just saying, hey, I make hip hop. When you specify and become a niche, you become a go-to person. That's something that I learned for myself, building out my own catalog within sync licensing. And this is something that I think is transferable to building out a sync licensing company. Hopefully this stuff was helpful for anybody trying to get into the sync licensing space. I definitely feel like I could make a part 2 on this. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments below. And also, if you're trying to learn more about the sync licensing space, we have a community where you can network with other like-minded individuals. Yes, we have courses and a lot of different resources in the sync licensing space. We also do monthly meetups, as well as these daily missions. And these daily missions are basically you focusing on a goal each day that I've mapped out for you. All you got to do is take the action onto these small steps that I've laid out. That's eventually going to lead you to signing to your first music library. There's a daily mission sent out every day. We really want to help people focus on accomplishing their goals in the sync licensing space. If that's something you're interested in, I'm very passionate about helping people outside of just building my music catalog, but also mentoring people as well. And I would love for you to join us within the community. You can find all that information in the description below. And if you want to learn how to take that next step into building your sync licensing career, we focus on advanced sync licensing strategies, and you can find how to actually pitch your music in this next video.